When I talk about the imagination or other qualities, often people ask, well, how do I access my imagination? How do I do these things? This is one of the reasons why I ended up, unintentionally though, becoming a type of tool builder, meaning that with the tarot, with keys, I was able to say that if you want access to imagination, you need the appropriate tools. You need to be able to begin to develop, as you would say if you were going to climb a mountain, you'd say I have to develop my capacity, my abilities, because I realize it's going to be quite a difficult trek. And I feel like this is one of the things about this culture where if it's not easy, if it doesn't come quickly, then forget it, I don't have time for it. And the one key, which if we think of how do we approach the imagination, if we think more on relationship level, meaning that it's an unknown something within you, meaning my imagination is different than your imagination or another person's imagination, but essentially it's a quality, a key that begins to say that I don't have one particular path, I don't have one particular approach, but I do have that which begins to allow you to begin to trust more and more your own capacity for, you would say, folly, things that seem ridiculous. Oh, that's crazy, but you just stay with it and it starts to make a bit more sense. And I found this as an actor, oftentimes, in creating a character. Crazy ideas, things that were off the wall would come to me. And I realized you could say that this is part of the imagination process, meaning we begin to listen. And when you begin to listen, you begin to realize you're not controlling. That's the desire to control something. You're actually engaging. And by engaging, it's actually a set of questions. I would begin with saying, if I want to access my imagination, even writing down, how do I access my imagination? And then take a while, take a breath, begin to just allow, in a way, the flow of your own thoughts. Because you'll know. This is the thing that I'm convinced, is that we do know. We're convinced, though, that we don't know. And so part of it is this sense of, well, how do I create a permission that says, even if I don't know, let me pretend. And this is where acting came in. Because you don't know how to play a king, you're not a king, but let me pretend. Then as you pretend, it starts to feel more kingly. You start to feel more of that energy moving through you. And this is one of the keys to the creative imagination. The imagination is to think that we are actors of consciousness, not actors performing actors, but actors of consciousness, meaning we can put on a mask. And I really say you should do this, is put on a mask. Start talking in the mirror as that mask. And begin to see what shifts in you, how you change, how that character starts to come out. You start to feel the voice of the mask. This is important because it starts to open up channels. It starts to open up the plasticity of the imagination, meaning you're not just stuck in the voice you think of as your own or the reflection you see as yourself. You're actually beginning to turn inward. You're beginning to listen differently. And this is not a process. I compare it to a painting of mine that will take oftentimes years to complete. That the imagination is not an object. It's not something done. It's an active, performative quality within the human psyche that does offer assistance if we are able to move away from desiring a type of political relationship with the world and knowing what we don't like, who we hate, what's wrong, who the bad guys are. That's all well and fine, but that has nothing to do with the imagination. That has to do with the politics of consciousness and what we have a personal affinity for or against. But this is actually the quality that says, I need you to fall in love. And love has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with what other people think. It has everything to do with your intimacy, what matters to you. And I tell my students that paint, I say, listen, don't share your work with people who critique. Any creative being does that for themselves. And I swear all human beings are very hard on themselves. So we don't need help. What we need is encouragement. And that's why oftentimes we have to be our own encouragement. To say, oh, the world doesn't care. Yeah, but you do. No one looks at this. Yeah, but you do. Isn't that a beginning? Isn't that a place of trust? Maybe if you don't have a goal, if you don't have an agenda, if you don't have anything to prove, the imagination starts to say, I like this relationship better. Because now you're beginning to realize that it's a relationship that draws more out of you. And like love begins to reveal to you that you are far more than you thought you were. But like love said, the reason I reveal this to you is because you're having a relationship with me. And like love, when I'm confusing, when I'm frustrating, you realize that the deeper truth is the love itself, and maybe that's just a weather condition. So let's not be defined by weather conditions. Let's not allow ourselves to be defined by our neighbors or by our politics, but actually by our love and our sense that we are that which liberates ourselves, because we are capable of doing so, but we must be the ones to take responsibility for that. And maybe that's the imagination, meaning you must imagine this is possible, and by imagining it, you create the conditions for it to be so. Trust your imagination. It's a very old ally, but it also wants your respect and honor, because in that type of relationship, what comes forth surprises both.